Hello everybody, my name is Edson and welcome back to my first E3 Roundup video. This is EA Play. I'm only going to do 4. I'm not too concerned about the other conferences. You've got EA, Microsoft, Bethesda, Devolver Digital. I always get them Ubisoft, Square Enix and Nintendo. Devolver Digital, they just I don't get their comedy, to be honest. And it's not one that I've ever really enjoyed. I've never enjoyed any of their conferences. They don't really have a plethora of games to announce, and it's just not my thing. You've got Square Enix as well, which last year and any time I've been there, it's just been so I'm not really going to do a roundup of them. I'll tweet out about it. And Nintendo as well. I've never really owned Nintendo consoles. Always wanted to, but it's also just like I'm looking forward to seeing what they do, but also it's not really too involved in myself. So I would have covered Sony if they were there, but EA, Bethesda, Ubisoft, Microsoft, and if they were there, Sony. So we started off last night with EA, which honestly was okay, but not great. That's sort of just my roundup of it. They had, before the event, they had an announcement saying that it wasn't going to be a traditional conference, which I had my sort of like, I don't know, I was a little bit hesitant when they said that, but I understand why after watching it, and I understand why. I think I understand why anyway, and I think everyone could sort of read into it, that we're sort of just killing time for the new consoles. It feels like everyone's just announcing whatever everyone already knows from previous years, and they're not really announcing too much until all the new consoles are out, and then they're going to go hard. So I think there's just a lot of stuff being worked on behind the scenes, ready for the new consoles. And obviously, we're rumoured to get the new Microsoft console this year. We're rumoured to get the new Sony console next year. So most likely 2021 is going to be the first real big E3 again, with all of the game companies that are just going hard and everything. So they announced that they're going to do a more talky, sort of like sit-down talk type presentation, where they interview some developers, have like 15-minute segments type things, 15 to 20-minute segments, every sort of like half an hour, and they're only focusing on 6 games. And they announced these 6 games. They announced the schedule before the event started, like a week before. So they started off saying that they were going to start with Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, then Apex Legends, then Battlefield 5, then FIFA 20, then Madden NFL 20, and then The Sims 4. Now, if you're looking at that, 3 of those games are already out: Apex Legends, Battlefield 5, and The Sims 4. FIFA 20, Madden NFL 20, they're both games that come out every year, so there's no surprise there. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, we've known it's been in the works for a while, and that's really what their conference, that was what it was resting on, that game. If that game was bad, everyone was just going to rip into this. So obviously, after a very lackluster announcement of games, with these 6 games, you're sort of looking at this game as a very make or break. And they started off the conference by showing a 15-minute preview gameplay, uncut gameplay segment, and it looked great. It looked freaking amazing. They fully delivered with this. The world, the characters, the gameplay, everything looks phenomenal. The only thing obviously you can't speak about, and I was tweeting about this during the conference itself, the only thing you can't really speak about is the story from a 15-minute segment. If the story lives up to it, this game is going to be a hit, and it's going to be a big one. And they did say the game is canon, so it is in the Star Wars world. So these characters are in other Star Wars things, or will be in other Star Wars things. So it's a canon piece as in the Star Wars universe, which is just amazing. It's great for fans. It's a single player experience, and it looks fantastic, to be honest. If the story's there, if the story lives up to it, and the storytelling is good, and the characters feel good, the gameplay, the world, the physics, the game style, everything like that looked top notch from the 15-minute segment, and it was just really impressive, to be honest. Everything that the developers were saying were on point. Everything that they sort of were speaking about was on point, and it was a good start, to be honest. So with that, they couldn't really. That was what everything was riding on, and that was a success in my opinion, and that's great. Then they moved on to Apex Legends, and They talked about the terribleness of Season 1, the Battle Pass that came with Season 1, and at the minute, there's a legendary hunt event with an elite queue. So if you finish like top 5 in a game, you get the ability to queue in this elite queue to play against other people that have finished top 5. And at the minute, there's a double XP weekend. They announced a new weapon, a new legend, and a massively improved Season 2 Battle Pass, which is not a timed Battle Pass in terms of like the requirements are timed. They're skill-based challenges, so you can come in and do the Battle Pass at any point. So you don't have to be playing the whole way through the season to complete all of the Battle Pass. So it's going to be a lot easier to get to level 100 now and complete the Battle Pass, but you can do it in like a week at the end, you know? Which is the best way to go forward, to be honest with that. So it's good news for Apex Legends fans all around. Moving on to Battlefield 5, they talked about they came out with a lot of announcements. They're currently in Chapter 4 at the minute. And there's 3 new maps coming. You've got one in June, one in July, and one in October. I think the one in October is classed as Chapter 5. I'm not entirely sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. But they showcased those 3 new maps. They talked about a bunch of smaller maps that are coming with smaller game modes later in 2019. So you can expect that in Chapter 5. They're increasing the max online rank from 50 to 500, so 10 times more. They're introducing finally the private game lobbies to the game, which is, I think they're only going to launch with the smaller maps and the smaller game modes to start off with. So that will be happening later on in the year. And then they gave us a Chapter 5 teaser, which brings us, I think it was like a Pacific type feel, islands, like, and you're going to get Japanese soldiers, US soldiers, and it looks really good, to be honest. You got the M1 Grand coming back, and Battlefield. Their announcements were great. So for all those Battlefield fans out there, I think you're going to be impressed with this, and it looks amazing. Then you move on to the sport games, sports, and that's FIFA 20. They started off talking about the Volta mode, which was announced earlier on in the day. They dropped a trailer for it earlier on in the day, and Volta Football is their street football. Throwback to FIFA Street back in the day, if anyone remembers that game. I used to love the first FIFA Street. As the more that came out, it just wasn't as good. I loved the first one, and the rest just not so much. But FIFA Street, you'll get some vibes from this Volta Football mode, and it's essentially street football. They're bringing it to the game. You can play any player in the game in the street football, so you can play like Ronaldo and Messi in street football, you know. You can play teams in street football, so you can pick a few players from each team. You can create your own players and everything. And it does. Them announcing this is also, sadly, an announcement that means the journey, the career mode, story mode that they had in FIFA is now going to be no more. They've done the 3 seasons of that from FIFA 17, 18, and 19. And that is no more. Whether they're going to bring back a story mode in future years, I imagine maybe this Volta mode is the buffer between them doing another story. So hopefully this Volta mode is something we keep in future FIFAs, and then they just bring out the story whenever and then they figure out what they want to do in between the next story and when the third one happens. But this year, FIFA 20, there's not going to be a journey, a 4th segment to the journey, or a new story mode started. We are getting Volta Football instead. So take that as you will. I do love the journey, but the Volta Football is a good replacement, and I'm glad that they've brought something, knowing that they're not going to have the journey there. They announced a load of gameplay improvements as well to shooting, dribbling, defending, free kicks, penalties, lots of stuff, lots of reworks, new ball physics as well, which is pretty big in terms of football. And yeah, FIFA 20, it looked just as they do every year. It's an improvement. There's some cool announcements that happen. The street football, I'm looking to see where they go with it. It's good. Thumbs up from me. From someone that's going to buy it and play a shitload of it, thumbs up from me. Madden NFL 20 was the 5th segment, and they spoke about some of the things they've already released in some teaser trailers. So the face of the franchise, which is a brand new career campaign, similar to the journey type thing from FIFA, but not as similar. It's not like a structured thing. You get to select from like 10 or so colleges. You get to play the college playoffs. You get to enter the draft. You get to get drafted as a quarterback. I think they say it's only for quarterbacks. You get drafted into a franchise and you play in the NFL. So it's kind of like a story mode type thing. You sort of like filtered through it, but you get to play some college football. You get to go through the draft, and then you get to go through the story mode. And hopefully there's some like cutscenes and stuff in that as well, which would be cool. They're improving the playbooks massively. There's going to be run pass options added, which if you watch NFL, you know that that's all they talk about. Run pass options, RPOs. Run pass options are going to be implemented. They're also going to have the playbook update throughout the game cycle as the NFL season goes on. So they're going to take periods during the season where they update the playbooks with new plays and stuff like that, which is really cool to see. So they're going to have like dedicated times where they update the playbooks. There's going to be missions, ultimate missions, which are sort of like in-game challenges, which are improved from previous years. You have the new scenario engine, and you have the X Factor abilities, which is something that is extremely exciting. So like the star players, they talked about it with Patrick Mahomes, with his passing and stuff like that. So if you'll have like goals to complete with star players and teams, and as teams as well, where so like they said with Patrick Mahomes, if he hits something like 3x amount long passes or something, he'll unlock his X Factor ability, which means he can activate it for one throw and throw like 15 meters further or something. So there's things you can do in the game to unlock that, to unlock your X Factor ability to like make a play in a game or something, which basically means like when you're on form, you go for something crazy and it sometimes pays off. But then obviously on the opposite of that, the defense can work on their things and they can get their X Factor up and stop your X Factor play and make it so they have to complete all of those things again. So Madden NFL 20 hit us with all the announcements, and it looks really good, to be honest. Then finally, closing out EA Play for 2019, it was The Sims 4, and they announced the next expansion, which is Island Living. So there's lots of islands, and you can play on the island. There's obviously the ocean, which you can interact with, which is new for The Sims. You can swim, play with dolphins. There's like volcanoes on the island. There's tropical fish. You can be a mermaid. There's new jobs. Most importantly, you've got like fisher, lifeguard, these sorts of things. But the most important one that they were sort of like thrown at you was conservationist. So you can sort of like look after the island, and the more you look after it, the island changes over time. It can become more lush. It can become less lush and look worn down and because you're not looking after it. There's sort of like gods that you have to please, and they want you to look after the island and stuff like that, so they can be more favourable to you if you are looking after their island. They can be less favourable if you're not. There's lots of stuff, and obviously, like I say, the island will change depending on how well you look after it. And then they announced the final surprise, Sims 4, the next expansion after Island of Living is Realm of Magic, and that's all they said. There's no teaser image or anything like that. They just said Realm of Magic is the next expansion coming this fall, so coming this year, so expect it like August, September time. So that's that. EA Play finished. They didn't really give us any more announcements. They had a couple of like 1 minute segment interviews with a couple of developers, like one from the Anthem team. They didn't really want to focus on Anthem because it was a big flop, but they had that, and that's really it, to be honest. They had some cool guests. They had Julia Hardy hosting, they had Golden Boy hosting, they had Trevor Noah there, they had Juju Smith, the NFL player. So they had some good guests there, and it was a decent presentation. And like I say, my verdict is not bad, but not great. Everything they showed was solid, but it was all expected. There was absolutely no surprises at all, and take that as you will. I didn't really expect many surprises after they announced what the schedule was going to be during the 3-hour presentation. I don't think anyone was really expecting many crazy announcements, but it is what it is. And like I say, it honestly just feels like they don't want to announce much because they're just waiting for the new consoles, and they've got lots of projects in the work that they don't want to announce, and they can't announce until the new consoles are announced because they want to say this is coming on the new console, it's a launch title, this and that. They can't do that because they haven't announced the consoles yet. And EA may have another announcement or something that's teamed with the Microsoft conference. Who knows? I doubt it, because if it's like a new IP or a redone IP or something like that, they'd probably want to announce it themselves. But it is what it is. So it wasn't a bad conference altogether, but it wasn't the best. EA Play, well done, but we weren't really expecting anything different. So yeah, that's the EA Play roundup for E3 2019. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. Hopefully looking forward to the future ones, the Bethesda one, which is going to be so interesting, the Ubisoft, the Microsoft, and all of the others that I'm not going to be covering in videos, but I'll be tweeting about. So make sure you follow me on Twitter, and yeah, thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you think of the EA Play conference if you watched it, or if you just watched this video. Let me know what you think with the game companies doing a little bit different. They're not really doing the presses as usual. And thanks so much for watching. If you have enjoyed it, make sure you leave it a like I say, comment, subscribe if you're new. And as always, I'll speak to you all soon. Take care.